Welcome to APDesign Digital Tools. In this video we're going to be looking at creating some tectonics for those division surfaces that we created in assignment 2. We're going to look at doing this kind of spider clip that seems to be very popular both in glass curtain wall design but also in schools of design. And we'll end up trying to kind of make a facsimile of this kind of system where we have the spider clip, this kind of offset rod, and then a tube connecting it all. So that's kind of where we're heading. We won't be modeling kind of every little part of this, but just kind of the basics. We'll have the clamp here, these two parts that the glass fits in between, and then a frame to go to a center that then has a rod to stand off for the tube. Alright, so let's get started. Open up your Revit, and in Revit we'll be doing a new family, and let's open up a new generic model. Okay, so let's get kind of a rough estimate of what exactly we are doing. I'm just going to draw a circle, just kind of get a basic framework for the sizing of things. So, you know, if the center of the spider clip's kind of there, we'll be only going like, say, 4 inches to the outside. And then let's go ahead and open up. So if this is kind of a top view, or kind of straight at the spider, kind of coming off of this point, we'll go to front view and hit ZF to kind of zoom in. And so that's my circle, and then I'm going to draw a couple other modeling lines kind of coming from that circle down, say 2 inches, and then over. So that just kind of gives me a rough framework of this is the center of the spider, and it'll come up to that point. In fact, it might be a little bit more kind of visual if you do it like that. So there you go. A couple other things while I'm in the Revit world. If you're like me and you're kind of switching between windows a lot, sometimes you hit this thing. This thing's just going to toggle through the ribbon, different ways of visualizing the ribbon. So if you lose these, just remember that that's there. And the other thing that you might lose is maybe your properties or this project browser or something like that. If you do that, go to View and User Interface, and you can click those things on and on and off. So just some kind of tidbits as you're working in Revit, so you don't lose stuff. Alright, so now we got that kind of taken care of. What we want to do also is to create an offset for what is called the front of glass and what will be the back of glass. So what we'll do is we'll grab this reference line here, and we're going to actually just create another reference line. So up here, grab a reference line and just draw a parallel line. Alright, so there we're going to try that again. Alright, so click on that, and And I want you to click on this and I want you to type in front glass. So I want you to create a reference plane just parallel to the other reference plane. And we're going to call this one, oh, see, I lost my property. Alright, fine. Okay, so this one we'll call the front glass. And back here we'll call this the back glass. Alright. And we'll go ahead and give it a parameter for thickness. So click on the dimension. I'll do it again. This little dimension right there. It changes its to a parameter, and then we're going to add parameter. It looks like I already have added one. Let me go ahead and delete that. Okay, so then we'll click on that. Go up here under label, add parameter. We'll call glass thickness. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm calling it. And then under this right here, the family types, you can change that to a dimension that works. You can see that the reference line moved with it, so everything seems to be working out pretty nicely so far. I'm going to change this to a different scale so the text doesn't get kind of unusually large. Alright, so now let's start making the clamps. So let's go back to the front, or no, the floor plan layer. Alright, so we're going to make well, before we do that, click out here in white space, and I want you to change this always vertical. Unclick that and click on work plane based. What that's going to do is going to allow you to rotate the object freely when you get into the adaptive components. So it's an important one to click. Alright, so now let's create a clamp. So the blend tool is what we're going to use. We'll hit that. And what the blend does is it lets you create two different shapes and basically blend between them. You can kind of see the icon here going from a square to a circle. You can see in the videos here, you know, so this image, you can see some other ideas. We're going to do something simple. We're just going to draw a circle that is 3/4 inch in diameter, or radius. And then we'll hit the top and we'll create another one that is 1/2 inch radius. Okay, and now go back into, say OK, go back into your front view, and we'll see this kind of crazy tall thing. So the default value is to go 1 foot. So we actually just want it to go, say, 0.25 inches. And in fact, and once you roll onto the screen, it'll actually take that and do that. In fact, we're going to go negative 1/4 inch. Alright, so there's our bottom clamp, as it were. And then now let's do the top clamp. So we'll go ahead and go back into the floor plan, and we'll just create a new one. So blend again, and we'll go ahead and select the lines that we had before. And what I did was I grabbed this pick lines, and I'll say now edit the top, pick those and say OK, and let's go back to the front view and we'll see this kind of crazy thing. Okay, so the first thing, right now if you click on it, you'll see that the reference level is kind of that original line. So we need to move it to the next one. So what we're going to do is pick a new. Actually, we'll edit the working plane and change it to the front of glass. So that just moves it up, and then we will change the depth to 0.25 inches. Okay, so if everything's going well, and we should always check, we'll see if we change the dimensions of the glass thickness, say to 1/4 inch, we'll see that that moves. So that's great. Go back to 1 inch. 1 inch is kind of a default glass curtain thickness. Okay, now we need to make the kind of bracket that holds the clip. Oh, but before we do that, we'll actually put a pin in here. Now you always want to be careful as you're modeling anything, especially tectonics, is to not get too well, just put as much detail as you really think you need, because if you put in too much, it'll just really slow down the machine. So I'm going to use extrude. So just to show you again, I'll go create extrusion, create a circle, and this one will be, let's go with 1/4 inch radius, and we'll say OK. We'll go to the front view again, and what we want to do is have this thing actually begin again at the front of glass, and we're going to add in a little bit more intelligence. When you use parameters, you can kind of set up formulas so that it goes exactly kind of an amount. So we're going to have the end of this. I'm going to create a new parameter, and this one will be called, we'll call it the rod length, and say OK. Say OK, and then we'll go in and we'll edit that. So rod length will actually be glass thickness. Once you have created a parameter, you can use it. You have to write it out exactly, and you can add. I'll add one. Well, I'll add 0.5 inches, half an inch. Okay, so what it's done is it's taken the 1 inch, it's added 1.5 inches. So let's apply that. We can see that that's exactly what it did, but in fact I need it to go in the negative world because I want it to go down here. So I'm going to have to not only put a negative, but then actually subtract. Let's see if that. Okay, so there you go. And I'm not quite happy with it. I'm going to do 3/4 inch. Okay. So now that seems to be working. Again, we should probably go ahead and check to make sure that when I change the value of the glass thickness, okay, so everything's working well. That pin didn't move down here, but it did move from the top, so that's great. Okay, so we have the pin, we have that. We'll go to 3D view, ZF. Alright, so if you want to actually see the kind of line at the intersection, what you can do is grab all of these components and go ahead and join them. Oh man, try that again. Alright, there you go. And so that kind of gets a very nice kind of line to show up. Alright, so let's go back to the front view, and here we're going to start drawing the bracket. So let's create an extrusion, and we're going to just start drawing. This is not kind of perfect drawing. I don't really have a bracket kind of in front of me to really decide what this looks like, but I'll make a fair guesstimate. And I can always go in and change this up as I need to. That looks pretty good, so I'll just go and say OK. And then I'm going to change the extrusion to go, say, 3/8 in one direction, and negative, we want inches, and negative 3/8 in the other direction. So let's go ahead and get rid of my my simple lines, and let's go ahead and look at the 3D view. So that's looking pretty good. So the next thing might be to add in the standoff, and then maybe rotate this, because one thing we didn't do was we didn't kind of take into account that if this is like a panel of glass, you actually want this thing rotated 45 degrees to that. So we might want to do that. So we'll go ahead and grab all of this and rotate it about the center. Alright, that looks pretty good. And alright, yeah, that looks great. So let's go ahead and get rid of the circle, and we'll go ahead and save this. We'll call this the spider bracket. Alright, now we're going to go in and create a new family. This time we're going to grab generic model adaptive. And in here, the first thing I want you to do is come up here to family category, and I want you to turn this to turn shared off. Okay, now just to note where we're at, anytime you create a new family, you have a possibility of kind of redefining what that is, whether it's furniture, doors, and whatnot. And this is important because doors, attach to walls, and so if you don't want to attach to a wall, then you may not want to allow that to be your family. You can obviously, using telling it to be different types of families, you really can manipulate it. So I mean, it wouldn't necessarily need to be a door that you're creating, but you want it to have some of the attributes of a door. So anyway, that's just where you do that. Alright, so shared is off. Okay. Alright, so now you're going to grab a point element. You just put it down somewhere. And then select it, and you'll see that make adaptive is a possibility. I want you to click on that. You've created an adaptive point now. The importance of that is that let's turn to the project 2. And in your current project, you should have like a grid of some sort like this. So if you click on that grid and you get into that surface, you can turn to representation and turn on nodes under surface, turn on nodes and turn off the UV grid. And you'll see these points, this point array. Well, the importance about this adaptive component is that essentially by just adding the component we're about to make to one of these nodes, we can populate the world with it, and it doesn't matter where it exists in the world, it will adapt to it. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so we'll say yes, let's get out of that. Let's go back into our family. This would be a good time to name it. So let's save. Let's call this the spider clip assembly. Okay, so now let's import our bracket. So let's go back into the bracket and load it into the project. So this is the spider clip assembly. Say OK. Okay, you may or may not have kind of a no-go sign there. You probably have this place on face selected, like I do. There's no geometry here except for a point, and so there's no faces, so it's just telling me no-go. So I'm going to grab place on work plane. I don't really want that. I want to set this. Use the set command and select the horizontal plane associated with that point. So there. Alright. And then I want to grab my family and bring it in. Alright, we want to make sure that that got put on the right place. So if you can grab the adaptive component and use one of these to move it around, as long as your point is moving, or your assembly is moving with the point, then we should be good to go. So just make sure that is happening. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate this. We're going to basically array it around the point. So I want you to go into the floor plan reference level, zoom into that, and let's rotate that. Place the center point to be right there. I think I've got it. No, center point. Looks like I may want to move this slightly. It's pretty close. I'm going to leave that there, but I do want to make sure that I'm rotating around that point there. So we'll go ahead and hit copy. Try this again. Rotate. Just go ahead and manually move that to the point, and then say 90 degrees. Let's try it one more time. Rotate, copy, move my center point to there. Say 90 degrees. Strangely enough, it rotated 180. That is really weird. I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'll go ahead and copy them, and then under then I'm going to paste, and I'll align to the same place. Now what it does is it tells me that I got double counting, so it's like two instances on top of each other. Just say OK, that's fine. And I'm going to grab that one, I'm going to rotate it. And I don't need to make a copy, I'm just going to now go in and make sure I'm on that point. And rotate that 90 degrees. Alright, Let's go ahead and copy that one, or maybe that is the copy also. I'm going to rotate it, find out if it is. Alright, sweet. So now I have their array. And we can see that I got something slightly off when I built this, but honestly it's close enough. You know, we'll never get to that kind of level of rendering. So that looks pretty good. Look at the 3D version. Let's go ahead and look at the front version, and we'll make sure our parameters are working for us. So edit type. Right now we have glass thickness. We still want probably to have control over that. Who knows how many times we might use this in a different project, and maybe the glass type might change the thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the associative family parameter. I'm going to add a parameter called glass thickness. Now this seems redundant. It's already in there. Why don't you just change it here? Well, we're going to put this family and nest it into another family, and so we want to always be passing that parameter along. So I'm just going to say add a new one, and now suddenly those two things are associated. So as I would go up here and change it here, it changed there. So it looks like everything's going pretty good, although I do want to change this back to 1 inch. Okay. So the next thing we need is to create a bracket. So let's imagine there's structure out here. We need some kind of rod or tube or some pipe kind of connecting that. So let's create a pipe or a tube. Alright, so I'm going to set my work plane as, say, down here, and I'm going to create a circle. It's kind of in the center. Well, I suppose I could just set that up here, since I do want it to be centered. And we already know that's shifting a little bit. I'm going to create a center, so let's put it like 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and then from there we'll go to, say, the front elevation. You should see, so that you have to use your imagination, but there is a circle right there. What I want to do is I want to align that circle to the base of the bracket. So I'm going to select the align tool, select the first thing that you want to align to, and then the thing that you want aligned. Let's try that again. Alright, it looks like because I set it. Alright, let's go back to 3D mode. I think I can, now that I've got that kind of in place. Well, let's see how this goes. What I'm needing to do is extrude this at this point. So I'm going to create form, and I want this cylinder. So it kind of automatically gave me a 1 inch form. I'm going to change that parameter to a parameter, the dimension to a parameter, and I'm going to add a parameter called length standoff. It could be anything, but I'm just going to keep it like that. Alright, now let's go into, and then let's go into the parameters of the family types. Let's change that from 1 inch to, say, 12 inches, or 1 foot. And we'll see it kind of growing. Let's go back into the front. Let's change the scale so those don't look so annoying. Alright, now let's try to align. Use the align tool. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to lock that to there. And you can see that this is kind of a long way off. Now it's 1 foot 2 inches. What I want to do is I'm going to create a reference plane here, and I'm going to create a dimension. you know, from that point to there. Try that again. Alright, and then from that I want to give it the length of standoff. Well, let's do the alignment tool. Actually, that did it right there. Great. Get rid of that. Now let's go and check that parameter, see if we can't tweak it. So it's 12 inches, or 12 inches. It's all good. What happened was it allowed it to kind of flip from being kind of upward motion to downward motion. So I'm afraid that if I move that, who the heck knows? Now it's all good. Alright. Sometimes you score without even knowing it. You get lucky. Alright, to finish this off, what we want to do is to start to assign materiality to this, or at least the possibility of passing that parameter on. So what I want you to do is, if you select each of these components, you see a material by category. What I want you to do is grab a parameter, and I want you to create a new one. So add. I've already created a spider material, but what you do is add your material name. Make sure that the type is material, type of parameter. So there you go. And then say OK. So I'm just going to cancel that since I've already got mine created. And then you would go in to each object here and select it. Click on that, make sure it's set to spider material. So there, click everything. You might want to go into 3D mode so you know that you've got kind of everything. So that one, and then I think this pipe, this little rod here. Make sure that. Alright, so everything's set to that. Load that into the project. And then do the same thing here. So let's grab this guy, and there isn't one yet, so we're going to add that parameter, and we're going to call this spider material. Say OK, and so that's assigned. And let's go ahead and make sure under edit type that that new spider material gets assigned. So say OK. And that should be good to go.